Welcome to the Dawgs Fantasy Football Podcast with your hosts, Justin Charles and Josh All.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Dawgs Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Josh all alone today because, well, it's midweek. I've got some time here in the afternoon, my job allowing. Justin at his job right now, time not allowing him to jump on here and do the podcast. Want to get this out to you guys and, just continue with the theme of pumping out some fantasy football content, at least once each week as the season goes on. Obviously, our main focus, is on the main flagship Dawgs podcast show for the Browns. But, we started the fantasy football podcast because we just wanted to do some commentary, give you guys a little extra content, not Brown specific, but league-wide fantasy football focused during the week. So that's what we're going to aim to continue doing, even if it is just me from time to time jumping on here and throwing out some fantasy football thoughts. So today what I want to do is just kind of recap a little bit of what happened in week 2. We are a little bit past it now. We're getting ready for week 3, prepping our lineups and all that fun stuff. So I want to talk about maybe some trade targets after 2 weeks now. You guys could be looking at maybe some players that I think are good players to go after and try to buy, and some players that maybe have had some decent performances that you should look into selling and trying to move off of, or getting some value back in return. We'll talk about those things. Waivers have already run, but we can take just maybe a couple mentions of some guys that could possibly be on waivers you might want to look at picking up. So we'll do all that here today real quick. Before I dive in, please like this video on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, continue to help us build up this platform and help support the show. We greatly appreciate it. And drop some comments in the comment section if you can, or if you want to. I just some start-sit decisions, some trade opportunities that maybe you're thinking about going out and offering, or maybe some that have got offered to you. You just want a little extra opinion. Me and Justin do this all the time. We were back and forth today texting because we've got so many fantasy leagues together as it is. And, he's saying, hey, man, I've got this other dynasty league. What do you think about this trade? Should I offer this? Should I throw in some more? Should I ask for a little more? We do that. We bounce ideas off each other all the time for trades. I swung 2 dynasty trades just this morning, trades that I did not wake up thinking even possible. I was able to acquire Brock Bowers in a dynasty league. Things happen. Things happen in fantasy football. And, I guess my biggest piece of advice to anybody out there, especially if you're new, if you're new to fantasy football and you're just trying to learn the ropes and get a feel for it, my biggest piece of advice is if you want to be successful, if you want to win, or just have a good opportunity to win the championship in your league, you need to be active. That's the biggest thing that I will tell anybody always about fantasy football. If you are not an active fantasy football manager, your odds of having success in your league are just kaput. They decrease dramatically. Now, every year you're going to have certain situations where, it's beginner's luck. You get the newbie or the dude that had the auto draft and somehow he ends up winning the league. He made 0 waiver claims all season, whatever. Yes, there are outlier, really weird situations like that, and they do happen, but very rare. 9 times out of 10, the leagues are won, or the people in the final 4 of the leagues, whatever the case may be, are the ones who are the most active. You need to be active on your waiver wires. You need to be active in trades. And the thing is, I always tell people too, who cares if you get a trade rejected? And don't stupid lowball offer people. I'm not saying go over the top to try to get somebody, although there are some players worth doing that we'll talk about today. But, just be active. Put out trade offers. If somebody rejects it, then come back and say, well, is there something I can add to it? Or, is that player completely off the table? Or, can we negotiate? They say no, they don't want to trade. Go find somebody else. Keep trying. And I'm not saying to trade just for the sake of trading, but always look at your roster, your team as, this, I don't know, dynamic that can constantly be improved upon. It can constantly be changing, improved. There's going to be injuries. You need to prepare. You need to be thinking long-term down the road. And one thing that I want to talk about here real quick, I wanted to mention in terms of thinking down the road. What we've seen so far in the NFL is very low passing output from the offenses. Quarterbacks aren't doing well. They're not scoring very well in fantasy. Wide receiver scoring, obviously, as a direct result of that, is down. NFL defenses always start the season ahead of the offenses. Offenses typically start slow. We're seeing that league-wide. I think the stat was in 2022, we had like 101 touchdowns scored in week 1 of the NFL season. And here we are in 2024. I think there was something like 60 or 60-something. You think you take 40-some touchdowns out of fantasy football scoring in the first week, your scores look very low, very low. So that's why, we're going to talk about certain things, but just keep that in mind. There's going to be fantasy managers that are looking at the output for some of these quarterbacks and some of these receivers in the first 2 weeks saying, I invested too high in some of these guys, and maybe they're ready to move off of them, or you can at least start that conversation. So the first guy I guess we could mention real quick, Jamar Chase. I think Jamar Chase is a very obvious buy low. And when I say buy low, I don't mean that you're going to get him for pennies on the dollar, but I mean that the buy window for Jamar Chase, which is usually shut tight. Usually the owner who has Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, these top tier wide receivers, there is no buy window. It's a buy brick wall. There you can't get in. You can't even start the conversation. But right now, with the way the first 2 weeks have gone for Jamar Chase and the Cincinnati Bengals in general on offense, there is a buy window. And you're still going to have to give up something to get Jamar Chase. But that something is going to be, I don't want to say it's going to be lower because like I just went through saying, usually you don't even get the opportunity to buy him. But, if you have another decent wide receiver and maybe a running back. This is Jamar Chase. I'll tell you what I've tried to do in one of my leagues. And I've actually got the trade offer on the block pending right now, just waiting to hear back from that manager. But they've got Jamar Chase, I believe, and I wish I had it up in front of me to go through the exact situation. I'm pretty sure they have Isaiah Pacheco, was like their RB1, and he just went down, right? So he's out for 6 to 8 weeks with the broken fibula, and now they've got, I forget who the RB2 was, but it wasn't great. It was not great. It was kind of a patchwork running back situation after Pacheco, and now they're really hurting. So I said, how about I trade you? I forget which wide receiver it was, if it was Jackson Smith and Jigba or somebody who just went off this past week that obviously, honestly looks good part of a good offense like JSN is, and J.K. Dobbins. That was, how about I give you the number 1 running back in the NFL right now and another young, good wide receiver for your squad for Jamar Chase. Now, I don't know if it's going to get done. I don't know if they'll come back and want a little bit more. Maybe we can tier up a little bit at the wide receiver position or something like that. But be active in pursuing a guy like Jamar Chase, because the person who invested a high first-round pick in Jamar Chase might have that same kind of situation right now where they've lost and I think the person that I was trying to trade also just lost Deebo Samuel. So they need help. So getting a guy like Jamar Chase at this moment could be doable, but I think it's this week because I think here in week 3 he has a big game. I really do. So go after Jamar Chase if you can, and let me know how that goes for you guys. And the guy that I just mentioned in that trade, J.K. Dobbins, I could be way off base here. But I've got this feeling like J.K. Dobbins is a little bit of fool's gold right now, and you've got a very nice asset on your fantasy squad if you got J.K. Dobbins, and it's like, I think I'm ready to cash in. It's like playing, it's like gambling. I'm up big right now with J.K. Dobbins. I know in my league, I got him with my last pick, like 15th pick, the last pick in the 15th round. Got J.K. Dobbins on my team. Now he's like the lead running back on my squad, all that kind of stuff. And I'm up real big on value with him. And I'm trying to move him because I know the history of running backs coming back off of Achilles injuries. And I'll give you 2 prime examples as to why I'm ready to move off of J.K. Dobbins after these first 2 extraordinary weeks for him. The first one is James Robinson. James Robinson was a stud running back until he tore his Achilles. When he came back from his Achilles, he looked like himself again. He looked like a stud running back for about, 2 or 3 games. And then it all just went downhill from there. And we know the story of James Robinson now. The other one, actually, I guess I have 2 more, 3 altogether. The next one was Cam Akers. Again, came back real quick from his Achilles in terms of, the history of returning from that injury. Looked real good, handled a big workload, and then that was it for him. It just could not sustain, was not efficient, couldn't get the job done. And the other one's D'Onta Foreman. D'Onta Foreman, early in his career after the Achilles injury, was nothing. He couldn't come back from it. You saw flashes and glimpses here and there, but that was about it. It wasn't until multiple years after that injury recovery that he really popped off with Carolina for a long stretch, and now he's been a serviceable rotational running back for a couple NFL teams. But J.K. Dobbins, and I am willing to be wrong on J.K. Dobbins. I'm willing to sit back and say, okay, he was the outlier. He was the one running back that bounced back from his Achilles and just stayed steady, stayed strong, had a great season for an entire season following that injury. But I'm ready to move off, guys. Like, I know yes, I shouldn't say I know. Like I said, I'm willing to be wrong on my assumption here, but I am assuming hardcore that this is not going to last and that we're going to see a major drop off at some point. So if you can cash in on J.K. Dobbins, go after one of these higher running backs maybe. Let me see if there's anybody that might jump to mind. Like I said, I'm trying to tier up at wide receiver. If you could go get, oh my gosh, if you could package like a J.K. Dobbins and I don't know, like a Terry McLaurin or one of these other receivers who has name value. Maybe they haven't produced a bunch yet, but they've still got, some clout in the league. Go try to get like, I would start high, me personally. Can I get Breece Hall? Can I try to get Bijan Robinson? And then maybe think about, okay, so that didn't work. Could I get James Cook? Could I get Ramondre Stevenson? Could I get, let me see if there's anybody else up here that I'm interested in. Saquon Barkley or one of these other higher running backs that, have maybe been okay, but haven't exactly returned as much as the owner was hoping when they drafted, and they see this J.K. Dobbins plus an asset coming their way. They might not do it, but I guarantee you they're going to at least think about it. The thought will cross their mind. So go ahead and give that one a try again. Tell me if you think I'm wrong about J.K. Dobbins. And like I said, I'm willing to be wrong, but we'll see about that. The next guy I want to talk about, though, is Jordan Mason. And I know over the summer we talked about, CMC's the no-brainer number 1 overall pick. Don't even think about it. Don't make it difficult. Take CMC. And we did that before the injury news came out about him missing all that time in training camp, the calf, all that kind of stuff. And now that it's the Achilles tendonitis, the calf injury, he's on IR. I don't know. This is just my personal opinion. I don't know that CMC ever comes back this season into a full workload, even in the playoffs. I think that with the 49ers' aspirations of a Super Bowl, they're in their window right now, and they're going hard in the paint for the Super Bowl. They don't need CMC to come back at any point this season and be the catalyst to get them into the playoffs. They'll be fine. And the reason they're going to be fine is Jordan Mason. Hey, Dog Pack. Football season is the best time of the year, and it's here to stay until the Super Bowl in February. So get more out of football season with Underdog Fantasy, and you can win 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on your favorite players' stats like touchdowns, passing yards, receptions, whatever you want. I've been playing Underdog Fantasy for years now. If you've watched any of our fantasy talk before the season, I have like over 12 best ball leagues on Underdog here for 2024, but you could play contests all season long. The Underdog app is awesome. It's easy to use, and it's one of my personal favorites. Making picks on Underdog is simple, and signing up is even easier. Just download the Underdog mobile app or go to UnderdogFantasy.com, sign up using our promo code DAWGS, DAWGS, and Underdog will give you a free pick to use on your first cash pick'em entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit. And you can also use our preferred fantasy sports link at signupexpert.com/dogs to access this great offer on Underdog and also see all the other offers available to you. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code DAWGS, DAWGS to claim your new customer special of a free pick and your deposit offer. Must be 18 or older, 21 or older in Massachusetts and Arizona, 19 and over in Alabama and Nebraska, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP, 1-800-639-8783, or text NEXT STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 HOPE line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. Big news, Dog Pack. We are thrilled to announce we have a partnership now with BetStamp and Sign Up Expert, opening up an incredible opportunity for you to join some of our favorite sports books and get the best odds and new user offers this NFL season. Head over to our dedicated page at signupexpert.com/dogs, DAWGS, to explore a whole selection of sports books tailored to your region, each with unique offerings for you. If you guys are ready to take your sports betting to the next level this NFL season, head over to signupexpert.com/dogs, DAWGS, and check out the new user offers and the best odds on all the sports books. That's signupexpert.com/dogs. I encourage everybody, if you do not have Jordan Mason on your team, go to the Jordan Mason owner and see what you can get. See if he's available. See what you could offer to get Jordan Mason. And if you're the Jordan Mason owner, I ain't selling. This is not a situation where I think I've got this depreciating asset. He's returning a ton of value for fantasy right now, but at some point here in this distant future, week 6, 7, whatever it may be, maybe Christian McCaffrey comes back, and now I've got Jordan Mason on my roster, and he's just a bench clogger, and CMC's getting all the work, and I should have got something for Jordan Mason when I had the chance. I don't see that happening at all. I think Jordan Mason is a league winner this year. I think that we're going to look back next offseason over the summer. When we do like our look back at the year kind of episodes and say, okay, what players were on the majority of championship rosters? And I think Jordan Mason's going to be one of those names that appears the most, because the 49ers have already shown that they like him, first of all, because during camp and everything, he took over Elijah Mitchell's number 2 role. He was already the preferred back to be the guy behind CMC, and then Mitchell goes on IR, and now CMC's on IR. This is the Jordan Mason show. It really is. And San Francisco, what do they want to do? Run the ball. They had the fewest pass attempts in the entire league in 2023, and I believe they're on pace for the fewest in 2024 as well. I'm sure they will be down at the bottom of the list by the time the season is over. They want to run. They want to smash mouth, pound you, play defense, and the reason they want to run is because they can. Kyle Shanahan's run scheme is so good. It's like, as long as he gets the right type of running back in that system, it doesn't matter who you are, you can be successful. And we've seen that with Jordan Mason. He has been a stud through 2 weeks, 21.2 fantasy points in week 1, 16.4 in week 2. He's getting all the carries, he's getting all the yards. He's not getting a lot in the passing game, but remember that Deebo Samuel has just been, popped up on the injury report. He's going to be out for a few weeks. This passing game is going to funnel through George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk, and I think you're going to see an uptick in passes out of the backfield for Jordan Mason. And even if there's not that much of an uptick in passing, he's still so efficient and so good and gets so much volume on the ground. Think of him like Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry gets so much volume. All those years in Tennessee, he was not a pass-catching running back, but it didn't matter. He volumed and touchdowned his way into top fantasy finishes every season. And that's what Jordan Mason, I believe, is going to do this year. So he's a guy that I have him, honestly. I think I have 7 fantasy leagues this year, and I've got Jordan Mason on my roster in 6 of them, which means he's in my starting lineup in 6 leagues. In my 7th league, the only one where I don't have Jordan Mason, I've got trade offers to that manager out there right now this week. And I mean, I'm pretty sure the manager I'm trying to trade with, she's got some injuries at the wide receiver position. So I'm trying to trade Calvin Ridley for Jordan Mason. So we'll see how that goes over. But I'm willing to go even higher for Jordan Mason. I am. I think that he is. I'm identifying him already as a potential league winner for 2024. So if you don't have Jordan Mason, go get him. If you do have him, don't sell. It's my advice. Let's see. Who else do we want to talk about here? I mean, as far as running backs go, if you don't have Brian Robinson Jr., I think Justin and I talked about him heading into the season. I think the dude's a stud. He's the real deal in Washington, and I think he's going to have a great fantasy season. Tony Pollard is going to be the guy in Tennessee. He already is, but Tyjae Spears is limited now. I don't know if he's out for sure, but he's questionable with an injury. I think it was ankle injury. So Tony Pollard has looked great so far, and we talked about that. He was one of my guys that I talked about early in the offseason of I think that he's going to be a great value in drafts because last year he was coming off of the broken foot, broken ankle, broken leg, something like that. He broke something down there at the end of the year in Dallas, and then he comes back to be their running back one, and he was okay, but he was not what everybody hoped he would be. And it was the injury. And I believed that 1 full year removed from that injury, getting ready for the second season start after that injury, he was going to be back to being Tony Pollard that we know and love. And so far, it looks like that's the case. Do you guys want to talk about the Saints offense? Oh, what the hell, man? The Saints, pretty sure the stat is 15 scoring opportunities so far this season, and they have converted all 15. They have scored. And most of that seems to have been Alvin Kamara, racked up 42 fantasy points, easily the league leader in week 2. He had 4 touchdowns, I believe 3 rushing, 1 receiving. The guy was a monster. Alvin Kamara, probably the best value so far in the entire draft season to this point. Obviously, it's only 2 weeks in, but man, does he ever look good. And he's the only thing they have in terms of the running game. He is the guy. Taysom Hill, they talked about using him at the goal line situations and stuff like that in the running game. He left and went to the hospital with a chest injury and stuff. They said he's okay, but still probably going to be somewhat limited. Jamal Williams is just a shell of his former self. And I don't know if Kendre Miller ever gets healthy to come back, but he's not doing anything to eat into anything that Alvin Kamara is doing. So if you've got Kamara, he's not a sell high. Alvin Kamara is a just flat out hold. Ride him all the way through this season, especially if you're in a PPR league. My goodness, is he awesome. In terms of, let's flip over here and just talk about a couple wide receivers. Jameson Williams, after week 1, it was an interesting situation with him, because he had all the targets, he had all the receptions, the touchdown, all the yards. And Amon-Ra St. Brown had, 3 targets in the entire game? It was like, oh, what is going on here? And me and Justin talked about, was this a flash in the pan? We talked last week, flash in the pan, or is this sustainable? And we both felt like the super high usage, probably not sustainable, but I don't think it's a flash in the pan. And we said because they made it a concerted effort to get him involved heavily and often. And that trend did continue into week 2. So I think Jameson Williams, if you got him, you got a good late round steal in him. And, if you can trade for him, I think I would do that. Rashid Shaheed, going back to the Saints offense, is another guy that, if you've got him, I don't necessarily think I'm looking to sell high. I think I'm tempering expectations, but I'm going to enjoy what he's giving me because the way he's participating in the offense, he's got most of his yards on 2 big catches, and it's given a lot of fantasy points through the first 2 weeks. What is he? 13.3 and 16.9 the first 2 weeks. Very, very good. He's outproducing Chris Olave, but the difference to me is that Chris Olave is, I believe Chris Olave has run, let me see if I can find that stat. I thought I saw the stat where he's run the most routes or something like that in the NFL through the first 2 weeks. He is heavily involved in the offense. He's just not getting all those targets. In week 1, I think he only had 1 catch or something stupid, and they were just murdering the team they play. What was it, Carolina? And, then they killed Dallas too in week 2. I think that Chris Olave is a guy that I would go try to buy low on, because if you can find that manager probably invested probably a second round pick, maybe a third, whatever, however he fell in your draft, into Chris Olave, and so far through 2 weeks has not returned anywhere near that kind of value. I mean, he passed over other guys, like he might have passed over like a Nico Collins or some of these guys who are blowing up here in the first 2 weeks in order to draft Chris Olave. So if you can tier, or package a trade together, see what that manager needs on their team, see what kind of injuries they've endured, and see if you can't fill a couple holes for them and get Chris Olave on the cheap right now, I would do that, because I think the big games for Chris Olave, they're coming. I think Chris Olave is about to pop off. This Saints offense looks legit. Clint Kubiak coming over from San Francisco, they've got the highest rate of pre-snap motion in the NFL. It is working wonders. Derek Carr is lighting it up. It's working. It is working. Now, do I expect it to run at this high of a level for 17 straight games? No, they're going to run into snags. They're going to have down weeks. Every team does. They're not going to fly high like this constantly the entire season. But Chris Olave is a guy that whenever push does come to shove, they're in some tighter games, they need to pass the ball to get down the field to score. Chris Olave is going to be that go-to guy. He is the number one wide receiver in one of the best offenses so far in the NFL. Go get Chris Olave on the cheap. And by on the cheap, I know he's not going to be cheap, but I think you can buy him a lot lower and try to go lower than what you could do, obviously, with the Jamar Chase owner. Tight end has once again held strong to its wasteland, definition in fantasy football. Isaiah Likely, if we told you guys last week on the show, we're not going out and spending a lot of fab on Isaiah Likely. I didn't bid on him in a single league because I knew I couldn't get him. I knew that what I was willing to bid to get Isaiah Likely, it wasn't even worth setting the bid and putting it in the system, because I knew he went for like 50 or 40, 50 in some of my leagues. And then he dropped back down after a 17.1 week 1, dropped back down to 2.6. I did not think that this was going to sustain. I think he's going to be involved in their offense for sure, but I just did not think he was worth that fab. One tight end that I would be investing heavily in right now, I'd be trying to acquire if you need tight end help, George Kittle. We already talked about San Francisco a little bit. Deebo Samuel going to be out. CMC obviously out. Those are two of their top pass catchers. And I think George Kittle, he only had 4 points in week 1, but he had 13.6 last week. George Kittle, I think, is going to be the primary beneficiary of Deebo Samuel's absence. Brandon Ayuk's had a slow start to the season. He might be another buy low candidate as well, because I think big games are coming for him. But George Kittle is a tight end that I'm trying to go after if I'm in need of tight end help. I'm actually going to bounce back real quick to wide receivers, because there's another guy I wanted to talk about, and I totally forgot. Another guy that you could probably buy low on right now, and when I say buy low for this guy, you could probably get him pretty darn cheap, is Amari Cooper for the Cleveland Browns. Amari Cooper has only caught 5 passes for 27 yards. And of course, I know all these stats because I do the Browns podcast, but he has 243 total air yards on 17 targets through the first 2 weeks. 17 targets, almost 250 air yards, and he's only turned that into 5 catches for 27. They're coming. The big games for Amari Cooper are coming. The Browns target him down the field often. Deshaun Watson is looking his way. They're trying. The problem with Amari Cooper so far has just been drops. He's had 2 dropped passes that would have been touchdowns, one that would have been probably a 50-yard touchdown in week 1. Easy walk-in touchdown, went right through his hands. Last week, he dropped a wide open pass. He got into the zone in the secondary toward the sideline. Deshaun dropped it right over his head, and for some reason, Amari jumped. If you go back and watch that play, I have no idea why Amari Cooper jumped to try to catch the ball. He could have easily just taken one more step, run underneath the ball, caught it, and then he would have just gone right out of bounds, no problem. But he decided he wanted to try to jump for some reason. The ball goes right through both hands to the ground. So Amari Cooper's got some shit going on, and I'm telling you guys, it has to do with the fact that he did not participate hardly at all in training camp. He did not participate at all in preseason games. And you're seeing guys like Jerry Jeudy and Elijah Moore have an early connection with Deshaun because they've been practicing with him since May OTAs, voluntary OTAs. Those guys have been on the field practicing together, getting their timing down, getting the rapport. Amari Cooper held out for the first part of training camp, and then he was hurt for the second part of training camp. It's coming. Amari Cooper's going to be okay. I would try to trade low for him if I don't have him. I have him in a couple leagues, and I'm just sitting on him because I know that the big games are coming. So head over back to tight ends. One other guy I did want to talk about is Brock Bowers. He just set the Raiders rookie tight end record for most yards in the first 2 games in history. Now his output, 5.8 points in the first week, 9.8 in the second week. Not massive, but consistent. And he is the number 2 target in this offense. Gardner Minshew is a very competent quarterback, whatever people may say about him. He can get the ball out and he can sustain a guy like Brock Bowers, because Brock Bowers is special. I'm telling you guys right now, he is a guy that I am willing to go buy high on. I think that he can be a difference maker. I think he could be a league winner down the stretch at the tight end position, because one thing we talk about with tight end is trying to get a positional advantage, because there's so few guys in fantasy football, the tight end position, who can actually make a difference on a week-to-week basis. There just aren't that many. The position honestly really sucks. Sidebar, I would not be shocked if in 5 years we're talking about the standard fantasy football league no longer contains the tight end position. Instead, it's just another flex. I wouldn't be shocked. I would not be surprised to see the tight end position kind of get phased out of some fantasy football leagues. But currently today, we have tight ends in the league, and Brock Bowers, I think, is going to be one of the most consistent guys with a high ceiling that you can possibly get this year. And when I talk about that, I mean, you're talking about a baseline, maybe 7 or 8 points on a bad game, but this guy could pop off for a 25-pointer anytime, catching a couple touchdowns in a game. It's possible. He's got that kind of ceiling, but his floor is what you're looking for at the tight end position in fantasy football. So I would invest heavily in Brock Bowers, and a guy that I am pretty concerned about is Travis Kelce. Yep, I'm pretty concerned about Travis Kelce. If you're the Travis Kelce owner, I bet you are too. I bet you are. Travis Kelce is virtually not involved in the offense. As far as the passing game goes, is he out there? Yup. This is not a situation where they're limiting Travis Kelce's snaps, trying to keep him fresh, keep him off the field or anything like that. He's out there a ton. He's blocking. He is not the first read. He's not the second read in the offense. They're looking for Rashee Rice. They're looking for the running backs. They're looking for Worthy, whatever they want to do. Travis Kelce is sort of becoming a non-factor in the passing game. And I don't want to overreact after just 2 weeks, but it has been 2 weeks. And I know, like in dynasty leagues, for sure, there's, I put out feelers in some of my leagues before the season, like, hey, where are you at on Travis Kelce? And people, I got straight up told by one person, can't have him. He's retiring on my team. Well, he's probably going to retire on your, top 5 draft pick team next year, because I was willing to go. I mean, I think most people probably were like, I'd have given up a first round pick for Travis Kelce because I was weak at tight end in one league. And I'm like, let me just get this guy, give you first. The deal, I mean, we didn't even have discussions because it was Travis Kelce's off the table. Well, I bet you now I could open the door, but you ain't getting a first for him. I can tell you that much. Could Travis Kelce bounce back, be a great tight end for fantasy football the rest of the season? Absolutely. I mean, that's totally in the range of possible outcomes here. But you're right to be concerned. You are right to be concerned. My personal advice on Travis Kelce, just the way I play the game, I would be probably trade blocking him this week and just see who's interested. And this is the way I handle trade blocks. Like when I put a player in the trade block, I'm not looking for somebody to just give me an offer and I'll take it. Whatever offer I get, I want to see who's interested. That's how I use trade block. Like if you play in Sleeper, which if you're not playing in the Sleeper app, what are you doing? You should be. They got the trade block feature. You just tap, I'm going to put this player on the trade block. It's a notification to everybody in the league. And then I want to see who's interested. Who comes to me saying, well, what do you want for him? Or who sends me an offer right away? Now I know who I can deal with. Now I know what manager is interested in Travis Kelce. So what? Maybe they send me a super low ball offer for Travis Kelce. It's fine. I can counter. I can come back and say, come on. I know it's been a rough 2 weeks. It's still Travis Kelce. What about we do this instead? The fact that they even came to me in the first place means they're interested, so they're willing to talk. That's the way I approach it, and that's just my advice. I would be trade blocking him to see who's interested and what I could possibly get for him, and if it's a deal that I'm comfortable with after we negotiate and go back and forth or whatever, I'll take it. I would get Travis Kelce off my team because I've got a bad feeling that this is it. I think that there's a lot of stuff going on off the field in Travis Kelce's life that I'm not saying that he's like distracted, but I just think that maybe the motivation of the younger version of Travis Kelce just isn't quite there. He's achieved so much already, in the game of football. I'm not saying that he's packing it in and he's giving it up. I'm just saying that the end comes for every player. We talk about the age cliff for every player. Travis Kelce's 34, 35 years old. Once you start to see the drop off with some of these older players, it never comes back and it just continues until they retire. So I'd be willing to at least see what I can get to move Travis Kelce. Again, if I don't get any offers that I like, I'll just hold him and see what happens. Maybe he has a real big game and then you can try it again next week or, in a couple weeks, whatever the case may be. But he's not somebody who is untouchable by any stretch. This episode is brought to you by Bodden Sports. Bodden Sports is your one-stop shop for all your athletic gear. Bodden started out perfecting and manufacturing the best balls in the business. Yeah, if that sounded dirty, that's more about your mind than my words. But hey, it's true. Baseballs, softballs, footballs, basketballs, volleyballs, soccer balls, you name it, and Bodden has engineered the highest standard sports balls available. And now they offer more than just sports balls. If you got kids playing baseball or softball, Bodden has batting gloves and bats to go along with both game balls and training balls. If you're into basketball, Bodden makes basketball specifically for indoor or outdoor use. Heck, Bodden even has all the equipment you need for pickleball, which is one sport that I hear everyone is playing and yet I still never have. And I need to fix that soon. But don't miss the backyard game section of Bodden's website where you can order everything you need for this upcoming outdoor season. Pool balls, backyard volleyball nets, croquet, bocce, horseshoes, cornhole, and more. Right now, you can get 10% off your entire order at Bodden Sports, BADEN sports.com/dogs, DAWGS, and use promo code DOGS when you check out. That's 10% off all the top quality sporting gear you need this season. BoddenSports.com/dogs. I'm trying to think if there's any other players I wanted to dig into. We didn't really talk about quarterbacks. Kyler Murray looks like me and Justin were so big on Kyler Murray going into the season, and he has done nothing but deliver. Derek Carr is on fire right now. I know I just saw people drop so much fab in a bunch of my leagues to pick him up. I just don't know. Derek Carr, man, has just been one of those guys where he's got these stretches throughout his career where he's hot. He's throwing yards and touchdowns, and he's the man out there, and he's got all the mojo and everything and the swagger. Then he just kind of falls back down to earth, and he's just average. So there's no rushing upside with Derek Carr. It's all been passing output. I would be a little more hesitant on him. Same way with a guy like Baker Mayfield. Is it sustainable? Like for fantasy, is their fantasy output going to help your team all season? I have a hard time seeing it, but you never know. I guess you're going to have to feel that one out for yourself. One guy, I guess, quarterback talking that I would be willing to try to capitalize on some trade value based on his name is Josh Allen. I get it. He was probably the first quarterback drafted in your league, or, if he wasn't the first, he was in the first three. Josh Allen is a stud in the NFL. He's a great quarterback, one of the best. Okay, I've said everything I'm obliged to say about Josh Allen. I don't think he's going to be it for fantasy this year. I really don't. He's going to have some games where he scores some rushing touchdowns by the goal line. He'll have a big passing output game or two. But I don't think it's going to be like it used to be, guys. I think that this new offensive system under Joe Brady, they want to run. That's why if you want to go invest heavily right now in a James Cook, like I was talking earlier, go take J.K. Dobbins and a receiver to go get James Cook or something, do it. Because I think James Cook is going to have a great season. He just blew up against Miami. So it might be kind of hard to get him right now. But I think that now obviously that's probably going to be his best game all season. But I don't know. Maybe he pops off for another one or two of those. But I think his baseline is going to be so good all season long because all Buffalo wants to do is run the ball. That's it. They want to run the ball. And if they're going to throw the ball, guess who is a primary option in that passing game? It is James Cook. So I know I started this talking about Josh Allen, but go get James Cook if you can. I would trade Josh Allen. I would try to move Josh Allen and get, see if I can get another quarterback. Because I probably wouldn't trade him. Because if he's your quarterback, you probably don't have anything too great after him unless you drafted two high quarterbacks. So I don't know why you would do that in a single quarterback league. But if you did, okay. But if you didn't, you took Josh Allen early and you said, okay, that's it. That's my quarterback. I would try to get another quarterback and a piece, like a running back. Heck, I would go to the Jordan Mason owner and just see who they have at quarterback and say, hey, how about I give you Josh Allen for Jordan Mason and this quarterback? There you go. Now you get who I think is a league winner at running back, and you still get a good quarterback. I don't know how Josh Allen finishes by the end of the year, but I think with their run-heavy focus, his big games are going to be much more limited this season. So he's a guy, honestly, if you could go get Geno Smith and Jordan Mason, give me those two guys over Josh Allen right now, lock it in. I'm good to go. I'm trying to see any other quarterbacks down here that I would be. Jaden Daniels, I think, is going to have a nice rushing baseline to get you what you need from that position all season. If you can flip Josh Allen for Jaden Daniels in a piece, do it. Kyler Murray, another guy. I don't know if you'll be able to do it at this point in the season, but Josh Allen has that. He's the number one, number two, fantasy quarterback every year. If you can flip Josh Allen for Kyler Murray in a piece that you need, a running back, a tight end, a receiver, whatever you need, like, do it. I recommend you do it. One last guy I guess we can talk about here real quick. Anthony Richardson hit the waiver wire in one of my leagues this week. I'm dumping every piece of fab that I have to put him on my team, and I have Jalen Hurts. So Anthony Richardson should not be hitting waivers. Anthony Richardson had a down week after one of the best weeks in week one. He had a down week in week two, but even a down week for him was still mid-range quarterback play for fantasy. So the dude gives you a baseline with his rushing that even on a bad down week, he's not going to derail, your team. He won't submarine your week. Anthony Richardson, if people are down on him after last week, the 3 interceptions, which one I think was the last second Hail Mary, trying to just get down the field at the end of the game, go get him. Go get yourself some Anthony Richardson because I'm a big A-Rich believer. I think that under Shane Steichen, Anthony Richardson's passing, it's very similar. Maybe I'll do a whole episode or a brief segment on this, but I was comparing Richardson to the way Josh Allen's career started. And if you go back and look at the first 2 years of Josh Allen's career, the first season, his rookie season, which honestly, this is pretty much Anthony Richardson's rookie season. Josh Allen's rookie season was just yuck. I mean, he sucked. He had a rushing baseline that helped him in fantasy. Passing wise, the dude was terrible. And then I went and I looked, okay, well, how did he come back in year two? The first half of year two for Josh Allen, yuck. He was awful at passing. I mean, he sucked. He looked like a bust. He really did. He turned it around. He fixed it. And now he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Anthony Richardson, I'm not saying that's going to happen with him. And maybe I will do a whole thing on this because I like to compare these two a lot. But for fantasy football, Anthony Richardson is going to give you what you need every week with the potential ceiling of a big game like we saw in week one. So don't get down on Anthony Richardson. If you've got him, hold him. If the Anthony Richardson owner is like, man, I'm kind of down after that week two, see if you can go get him. Because I think that he will be among those names in the league winners when it's all said and done. So, all right. Well, I don't know if I even stuck to what I said I was going to do in this episode. I didn't really recap a ton of week two, but there you have it. Obviously, we had some injuries. Tua took the nasty concussion on Thursday night, so now he's out. Skylar Thompson's going to play for them. Kind of diminishes the fantasy expectations for all of your Miami Dolphins players, which sucks because Tyreek Hill was the 101 to 104 in pretty much every league. He was in there somewhere. I know I've got like some Jalen Waddle. I think Achan's going to be okay. I hope they don't give him damn near what they gave him Thursday. I don't know why they gave him such a heavy workload in a blowout. I think that was a poor coaching move by McDaniels. So hopefully they get that kind of corrected. I still think he's going to be okay. I think he's going to be good for fantasy, but we'll see. We'll see how long Tua's out. I think it'll be a few weeks as he bounces back from this nasty concussion. Trying to think who else got injured this week. I know Justin Jefferson left with a quad injury, but a quad contusion. Pretty sure he's going to be fine. They're assuming he's going to be back and playing this week. No real big deal. Same with Amon-Ra St. Brown. I forget what his injury was, if it was an ankle or something, but I think they said he's going to be okay as well. Trying to go through it here, but guys are getting hurt, so that's why you've got to be active, because if your players are getting hurt, you need to be looking at the waivers, try to get a plan together, try to patchwork things up, and looking at trades. How can you fill holes on your team, or how can you go help another manager fill a hole on their team and in return help improve your team? So just one last bit of fantasy talk here. People all the time everyone wants to post on Twitter, social media, who won this trade? Here's what I gave up. Here's what I got. Or here's this trade that was offered to me. I took it. Who won the trade? I don't like thinking so much in terms of winning or losing trades. Trades should never be about winning or losing the trade. Trades should be about two fantasy managers coming together and negotiating, because manager A says, look, I need so-and-so because I've got this situation going on. And manager B says, okay, well, I need such and such because I got this situation going on. How can I give you something that improves your team, and in return, you give me something that improves my team? That's how fantasy football trading should be done. I don't like the leagues that have trade vetoes. I don't play in any like that. Anything that I commission, that is immediately out the door. If two people want to make a trade, make the trade, because it could look really, really stupid at first to a lot of people, but in the long run, I'll give you guys a quick example. Last year in our Dynasty League, if you watch our main show, you know who Blake Reniker, John Nye, used to be a host with us there. We're in this Dynasty League together. And Blake traded, what did he give? He gave a first-round pick, and I think it was Tyjae Spears to John. John gave him Tua and Austin Eckler. And at the time, at that point in the season, where Blake was contending for, the playoffs and all that kind of stuff, it was like, wow, I can't believe he just got the NFL passing leader, one of the top quarterbacks in the league. And, you got to remember last year, Austin Eckler in fantasy football was being drafted in the first round. He was a top running back, all that kind of stuff. So it was like, you got to be kidding me that this trade went through, but we don't veto, and they both thought that was a good trade for each side. So they went through with it. Well, let's fast forward, because at the time, everyone said Blake won that trade. Let's see. Tua ended last year on a bad streak. Like his fantasy finishes toward the end of the year were not good. Didn't help Blake at all. Austin Eckler didn't help Blake at all. Austin Eckler was worthless in fantasy last year. Now this year, he's just sitting on his roster, not doing a whole heck of a lot, and Tua's on the IR. Meanwhile, John took that first-round pick and now has Marvin Harrison. Tyjae Spears, obviously out with the injury, but, a young running back who's got years to see what, happens with him. Now the trade looks a little more balanced. I mean, who would you rather have, Austin Eckler, Marvin Harrison Jr.? I don't even think that's a question. So just keep that in mind when you're doing your trades, when you're going to other managers. You're not trying to fleece somebody, okay? Obviously, if you can fleece somebody, whatever, fleece them. I mean, it's fantasy football. I mean, to each their own, everyone out for themselves. But the best way to approach trades, especially with the savvy managers in your league, is to go at it logically with good reason and say, hey, look, I see your team. I see who you just had to put on IR. How about I give you this and this, and you flip me this back? Those trades are much more likely to get done. Those managers are much more likely to engage with you and to continue engaging in trade talks in the future. So just my spiel on trading, and we'll talk more fantasy advice and the ways to do this or that, strategies for your leagues and things like that as the show goes on. But we're still early in this show, and we're really excited to be doing this for you guys every week, and we're going to continue to pump these out at least once a week just to get some fantasy content for you guys to listen to, get your brains thinking about some of these players. And again, if you've got questions, starts, sits, waivers, should I burn this much fab on a guy? Should I make this trade? Any questions you have, guys, put them in the comments. We will answer you and hopefully help you guys win a fantasy football league. So thank you for tuning in. We appreciate it. It's been a fun ride so far. It's only been 2 weeks. We've got a long way to go. The season moves fast. Be active. Don't stay complacent because, again, things move fast. So move with them. We appreciate you guys. Until we talk to you guys next week, good luck in week 3. See you guys in the next one.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Dawgs Fantasy Football Podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube and follow the podcast on social media at the Dawgs Fantasy.
This episode is brought to you by Danger Coffee. We talk about how Danger Coffee is made free from mold toxins that are in 45% of the world's coffee, but that's not all that Danger Coffee has to offer. Mineral and nutrient deficiencies are a big deal. They make you feel sick, tired, stressed, and they can give you brain fog. These deficiencies negatively affect your immune system, your digestion, sleep, metabolism. Have you ever wondered why you get an initial burst from your coffee, but then you get that little crash not long after? Danger Coffee's patent-pending process remineralizes your body with more than 50 trace minerals and electrolytes, leaving you more energized, engaged, powerful. These micronutrients enter the cells to boost performance. They bind to toxins to provide detoxification support. I know that sounds like a lot, but the bottom line, guys, is minerals matter, and most of us really don't get enough of them on a daily basis. Danger Coffee delivers micronutrients, plus it gives you access to the minerals you already have. Head to dangercoffee.com, use our code DAWGS, DAWGS, for 10% off your order. And that code can be used over and over. So you get 10% off every order you make using code DAWGS. It's time to start every day off with a cup of coffee that gets you going and actually keeps you going. Dangercoffee.com, code DAWGS.